Hello! In this tutorial we are going to make a simple registration form validation with Combine framework. We will learn how to add publishers, emit changes from our view model to view, and update things on both ends seamlessly. Our form will validate the username, our password fields, and show validation error messages if passwords do not match or do not meet the minimum length criteria. If the form is valid, the register button will be enabled. Otherwise, it will be grayed out as you can see right now. User will be allowed to complete registration if he provides a valid username and matching password. Let's start the tutorial. I want to start by creating our view. First, create our view hierarchy. Command-click on text, add a group, one more time add another group, and let's rename first group as form and the other one as a section. Let's delete this text and instead let's add a text field to store the username property. Since we don't have a view model, let's use constant empty string to bypass that. And let's create another section. This time add a secure field to hold password. Again constant. Copy and paste it and add the placeholder as password again. Finally, let's add button. Let me choose action label, leave action empty, and text. Change the label as register for completing sign up. Again, command click and select H tag. Add a spacer to the top and bottom of the text to center the label nicely. I think it's all good now. Last but not least, let's create a file of its own to make a component for our register. So Swift UI file, register view. Okay, now let's copy the form and paste it inside the body, and option command P for starting preview to make sure everything is good. Now we are all good. Oops, and let's delete this code and add the register view component. We are all good with the UI. Now it's time to create the logic, and in order to do that, I want to create a view model for the register view model. Okay. This view model is going to use Combine framework, so we can use Combine framework's observable object by subclassing our view model, which is going to enable us to send emit changes from our model to view, and our view will not know what is going on. In the logic, let's create a username, copy paste real quick, and this time password, and another form for password again. So far so good. I want to test what we have done and see if it is working. So let's initialize the class, and here I want to add the bindable username since it's published. Let's debounce it every half second, so changes will be handled every half second, and run it on the main thread and remove duplicates. We want to handle only unique values, and we need to assign it to a variable. Okay, let's click a variable to send our form validity is valid false. So our initial state of the form is not valid. And the k value pair on the self class, we need to also store it. But before storing, there is one thing that we need to do. Username is a string, but what we are trying to convert it is valid, which is a boolean value. In order to do that, we need to add a map. So our logic is, if our username length is greater than 3, which means if it is 4 characters or more, it is a valid username. This is our business logic. Now this part is solved, and the next thing is Swift using automatic reference counting. So any variable should be removed from the memory if it is not holding a reference. So we need to keep its reference by adding a cancelable, set any cancelable, and store our username bindable reference inside this set. So we are all good. Now we can build and see if it is good. Yes. Now move into the UI part and instantiate our view model here. And an important step is in order to get this emit from the view model, we need to add this annotation observed object. Now we are ready to receive signals from the view model, and we can remove the constant. We don't need it anymore. We have a view model and it's VM username. So anytime there's a change, it will be sent to the view model. View model will process it and inform us if it is valid or not. And we are going to disable the button based on if it is valid or not. VM is valid. If it is not valid, it should be disabled, basically. So let's test this code, run it, and let's see if it is going to work. Okay, it's building. So we will type username. If it is greater than 3 characters, it should be valid. If it is, and the button should be enabled. Right now it is disabled. I'm typing username UR. And it's all good, but one thing missing is auto capitalization modifier. Let me set it to none, so it will not auto capitalize. We don't want it. And yes, test it again. Yeah, good. If it is 4 characters, the button is clickable. If it is not, button is disabled, so it's not clickable. The first part of the form validation is working as expected. Now we can bind the password and password again fields. Now it is time to bind our password and password again fields to our UI and add the logic in our view model. Let's delete this placeholder constant with password. View model password, and the same for the password again field. This time it is password again. Okay, here what I want to do is creating a publisher's markup, and what I want to do is create a stored property where we are going to store our isUsername publisher. It's basically what we already did in our initializer, but this time it will be stored in its own property, which is an AnyPublisher that returns a boolean that never fails. I'm going to explain AnyPublisher, but first let's quickly copy the parts and move into the stored property and add erase to AnyPublisher to make it AnyPublisher. So we changed it with isUsername valid. Let's run the code and see if it's working. Username, if it is 4 characters, the button is enabled. It's all good. So we are fine. Now let's add another property. This time this is a password did match publisher, or it's better, let's make it did password match. Again, it is AnyPublisher. It is returning a boolean value that never gives error. And here the difference is now we need to combine two bindable values, and in order to do that we are going to use combine function. As you can see, there is CombineLatest and CombineLatest 3 and 4. As the name implies, combine 3 and 4 gets 3 and 4 parameters, but this one is what we need since we have two bindable properties, which are password and password again fields. Let's insert them. Password again. Let's debounce at half second and run it on the main thread. Now at the map, this time $00 means password and $01 means password again. We are checking if those two properties are the same, and if the length is greater than 3, it is a valid password. And again we add erase to AnyPublisher. Erase to AnyPublisher, you can find the description in the documentation, but basically it helps us. On top you see the type that we have to write. We are get rid of this thing and writing a simpler AnyPublisher type for our stored property. Now let's add another publisher. For this time it is for invalid. Again it is AnyPublisher, boolean, never fails. And again we are going to use CombineLatest to combine our properties. The properties that I want to add is username valid and did password match. Again, debouncer for half seconds interval and running on main thread. The code that I want to add here is the mapper. Similar to the did password match, we are going to validate if the username is valid and password is matching. The 0 is username valid property and 1 is password match. Erase to AnyPublisher. And we are going to replace is username valid inside our initializer with is form valid. By that way, we are going to make sure that our form is valid. Let's rerun our application. This time our password and username validation should work. Okay, it is still not enabled. If it is 2 characters of password, it's not enabled. If we increase it to 3 and one of them is 2, it's not matching. And let's make it 1, 2, 3, 4, and here 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see now, our validation logic enables the button as we expected. Now it is time to add our validation error messages. I want to store the password state inside an enumerator. For simplicity, I want to add cases valid, not matching, and too short for our password states. And let's remove the password length check inside the did password match property. This is not the place that we want to check it. What I want to do is write a specific property check to check the password length so we can handle the error message correctly and simply. For the initial case, when the password fields are empty, we don't want to show any validation error yet. So let's add is empty for password and password again fields. If they are both empty, then we should return true. And if the both passwords are matching, then we should again return true. But the difference is this is only for initial load. I just want to keep things simple. You can make it a better and more enhanced logic. So again we are returning true. And finally we are returning false. We are going to add error messages soon. And I want to add a private property to store the password state and with an initial value of password state valid. So here the password state should be valid. And let's add a publisher to verify the password length now. Let's name it valid password length. AnyPublisher bool never. We are doing this over and over again. There's a good reasoning behind adding erase to AnyPublisher, which you can find in documentations. But practical reason that we are using erase to AnyPublisher is basically erase to AnyPublisher save us writing a very long stored property type, which is something quite long and ugly. So even that benefits is good to use erase to any property. So here in our valid password state, valid password length, sorry, we are checking the length. If it is greater than 3, then this also the other password field is greater than 3. This time let's use a comma separator for AND logic. Yeah, this is the password again field. We should return true. If not, we should return false. And we should set password state as too short. Here also we want to add the password state, which is not matching. Okay, we are all good. Now we have one more publisher that is going to handle the passwords match and valid password length publisher, and it is going to validate the overall password. Let's create it. Private var again, this time valid password. AnyPublisher bool that never returns any error, and the classical stuff with debounce, etc. Let's copy and let's copy and change the password and password again fields with the passwords match and valid password length, and the mapper should say if both of them are true, then we should return true. password state is valid, return true, otherwise return false. No need for else. So far so good. Erase the publisher and we finalize the valid password property. Now everything is ready and good to use it inside our is foreign valid publisher. Instead of checking only the password match, let's rerun it and test it. Our code should work like the last time, but we still will not see the validation error messages yet, since we didn't add them to our UI. So if password length is 4 and matching enabled, if not disabled, everything looks fine. Now, in order to show the password validation message, I want to add a publisher property for password message, which is a string. And what I want to use is I want to add a didSet method for the password state, and whenever the password state changes, I want to update the password message with password state row value. Of course, right now we don't have a row value yet. In order to do that, we need to make the enum string subclass string and add some values. This is empty. If it is not matching, passwords do not match. And if it is too short, then password must be at least 4 characters. Now we can set the password message to row value. Yes, this time it is showing up in the code completion. The final part is adding a footer message to our password section, and I want to use our model password message and foreground color red, and let's change the font. So font, maybe caption is good. Now let's rerun the application. Now we are seeing password must be these 4 characters. Okay, password do not match. Now everything is fine. If we erase it and type it again, passwords do not match. If it matches, again do not match. If it is 3, that must be 4 characters. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's working and giving an idea about how to add validation messages.